Canadians filing returns under the new Underused Housing Tax for 2022 have until October 31st to meet the deadline. Individuals who miss it could face a penalty of $5,000, and corporations could be on the hook for $10,000 for each residential property that's deemed to be underused. Let's find out more on who this affects. We're joined by John Oakey, Vice President of Taxation at CPA Canada. John, thanks for giving us the time.
No problem, Paul. Thank you.
But before we get into who's covered by the tax, can you just remind, what is the tax? What is the object of it?
Well, the object of the tax is to discourage foreign ownership of properties that are considered unproductive or vacant. I mean, that's the general purpose of having the tax in place.
Let's get to the groups who are on the hook. So if I'm a Canadian individual, a citizen or a permanent resident, I don't have to pay it. But if I'm a foreign holder, for example, of residential properties, I am possibly on the hook here?
Well, there's really two groups here. There's the excluded owner, which is, like you said, it's a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident of Canada. You'd be an excluded owner, which means that you don't have to file or do anything. If you're not an excluded owner, then you are an affected owner, which means you have to now do something, which requires you to file a return and either file the return and pay the tax or file the return and find an exemption to the tax. So that way you don't ultimately owe tax, but you still have a reporting requirement.
And there's a twist here. Even if you're a Canadian citizen, if you own property through a corporation or a trust, you may have to file?
Yeah, that's the interesting aspect of the reporting mechanism is, if you're a Canadian citizen and you own the property directly, then you're an excluded owner and you're fine. But if you happen to be a Canadian citizen and you indirectly own the property through a Canadian corporation, a partnership, or a trust, well, then you're not considered an excluded owner. You're considered an affected owner, which means you do have to report. Now, there's an exemption there if you are a specified Canadian corporation, partnership, or trust, which basically means that it's predominantly owned and controlled by Canadian citizens. Then you still have to file and be subject to penalties if you don't file, but there's no tax owing.
And is this is just for houses that nobody was living, or homes that nobody was living in?
Well, that's the general premise behind it. There's, whenever you try to draw a line in the sand, there's lots of exemptions that you have to put in place in order to make sure you cover off all the potential scenarios. But I mean, that's the general premise behind the tax. Is something that's vacant or unproductive.
And people, though, just to reiterate, people who do own a home, a second home, not their permanent residence, individuals, they don't even have to file. They don't have to worry about that if it's been underutilized.
Well, if once again, if you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident in Canada, no, you don't have to file because you're automatically excluded from the rules and there's no requirement for you whatsoever. The issue becomes if you're not a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, or you indirectly own it through one of these other vehicles, because in those situations, it's not the Canadian citizen that actually directly owns the property, then you're into the reporting filing.
I'm just thinking about holiday cottages. I suppose would you have to file for it? It was mostly empty if, again, it was owned by a foreigner or through a corporation?
Correct, you would. So in a situation where if I own a cottage as a Canadian citizen, I wouldn't have to report because on the land registry would be my name and I'm a Canadian citizen, so I'm an excluded owner. Now, if a non-Canadian citizen owned that same property, well, then they wouldn't be an excluded owner. They would have to file a return and try to find an exemption in there that would exclude them from the tax. They'd still have to report and be subject to penalties for non-reporting, but they would have to look for an exemption where they've utilized the property either as their principal residence or they've utilized the property for a significant period of time, or maybe there's a reason why they couldn't use the property because maybe it's only a seasonal property and you can only use it for, a quarter of the year, or it was under major renovations, and and there's an exemption for those as well. So if you're a Canadian citizen, no problem. If you indirectly own it through one of these other vehicles, a corporation, a trust, or a partnership, then you have a filing requirement. If you're not a Canadian citizen or non-resident, well, then you have a filing requirement, and you may end up owing the tax if you don't fit in one of those exemptions.
What is the rate of the tax? How much if you do have to pay on this underused residence? How do they calculate the tax?
Well, the tax is calculated currently at 1% of the fair market value of the property. Now, that may change in the future, as we've seen with some of the other vacant housing tax, and some in Toronto. We've seen the rate increase in Toronto. We've seen the rate increase in Vancouver and BC. But currently, under the underused housing tax, it's 1% of the fair market value of the property.
I know this is, sorry, we're tight for time, but I'd just love to get your take on it. Do you think this will influence people's behavior? Could you offer us any insight there? Will it incline people to make sure people are living in a home?
I think it will definitely influence behavior, but the real question is, will it have a dramatic effect on the supply of the housing units in Canada? And if you look at the number of affected housing units that are vacant and foreign owned, I think StatsCan said there's around 30,000, and there's about 16.5 million homes in Canada. Mm-hmm. If you put 30,000 these underused homes back into the market, I don't think you're really affecting the population of homes, very significantly.